And welcome on into the Inspire Network, episode 5. 5.
I
4?
think this is 4.
5?
We're on
4.
4. Well,
I'm already
we
thinking about
could
5.
be
We've
that
been
too, but
talking
we
about
could
5.
be on 5 if
We could
we
be.
would have posted
Yeah,
the
guys.
very first
Been a little bit of
pilot.
long week. Chalk it up to that.
Yeah. How
We're
you
gonna
been?
start we're
How you
gonna
been,
start
Jim?
things a little different. Good, Julian. We start things a little different today. Julian just asked me how I'm doing. Long week. A lot of stuff going on in the world.
Yeah.
Sure, there's a lot of stuff going on in everyone's individual worlds, and that's why we're gonna crack open a nice cold Cape May Brewing Company coffee stout.
Nice, dude.
Nice. It's beginning to a good week. Gotta believe
Well,
in it.
yeah, it's Monday. Monday stirs it up, dude.
What about you, brother? How you been?
Pretty good. Pretty
Yeah,
good. Likewise, long week. Just, rolling with the punches, trying to keep a positive attitude, stay in routine, keep up the daily habits, and really just I keep finding out a lot more about myself, like especially being in a new industry within the last year and a half. I feel like there's never like right now, I don't know, for a lot of people, maybe they say like 10 years is where you're like, okay, I've seen everything in the industry.
yeah,
But like, we're so new to our industries right now that, there's a lot
crazy.
of new things that we're consistently seeing. And it's like when you are able to manage those situations or not manage the situations, but you really like find out who you are, or you can find out who you are through it. So
Yeah,
long week,
I agree.
but
I agree. It's a very
drop some
strong
money into the
point.
stock market, trying to grow the
There we
portfolio.
go. At a boy.
Yep.
Want
So
Will you disclose to us what you bought? What's the play? What's the play
the
this week?
the play.
This is
Well,
not financial
I am
advice.
not. I am no financial advisor, but
I feel like I see that on every post for a
it
stock
has
play
to
or
be,
something.
man. Yeah, I'm not going to get caught in that mix. But tech companies right now, really doesn't matter. Like your major ones, even like my thought process is long term right now. So
As it should be.
anything that I can buy in, especially with technology, with the way it's going, it's always evolving. It's the one thing that's gonna keep pushing us towards the future.
Yeah.
That, energy. So bought everything's on sale right now too. I won't say
Glad you
my
put it
picks.
that way. Glad that you
Yeah,
put the market's on sale.
yeah, the
Very glad
market's
you
on
put it that
sale, but I'm also down. I'm also very down
way. Yeah,
from the
but you know
last 2
what?
years from
You know
what is
what,
going
though?
on in this crazy freaking world right
Well, you
now.
shouldn't
So,
be down for 2 years.
but I understand the concept of, long term staying in, and it's
Yeah.
tax season, so you got to think about the billionaires and the major hedge funds. They're pulling out to pay their taxes, so that's like
Yeah.
a part of it. There's a lot of other
Try not
stuff.
to pay 'em any taxes at all, and they know how it works.
Yeah, or not paying any taxes.
Tax-Free
But
Wealth. Great book. Little plug there. Tax-Free Wealth.
did you see?
Great book.
Did you see the number that Elon Musk paid in taxes this year? He paid full tax this
Really.
year. Oh, dude, crazy!
Do you have the number?
It's in the billions. It's in the billions. He paid that in taxes,
Yeah.
bro. How crazy is that?
He's a successful guy. What about the
Holy
speaking of
shit!
Elon Musk, he was in the news for another pretty awesome thing that he did. And he put up Starlink over Ukraine, and
Thoughts and prayers
for
out to
people
everybody there.
watching,
Hold on,
I'll have one
we don't
to
want to be in it.
the Ukrainian people. We're with you, and
Yeah,
this is to all the ones who are fighting the fight right now.
yeah.
And
Past roommates. Even relationships that went sour. I reached out to those people, and really just it didn't even matter what the past was and what had happened. Reached out, and that they're going through it. That's like my buddy's
yeah,
from Ukraine, so
I think this is a good topic
it's
to talk
crazy.
about. Actually, I have a very strong point to bring up. However, I just want to plug in what I always talk about with Musk, what he did, because I think it was a great thing that he did do. Um, he has these satellites called it's like the highest quality, highest efficiency internet capability called Starlink satellites. Fastest, most consistent, stable network um, that they've seen so far, and he did that, with all the cyber attacks, excuse me, happening in Ukraine from the Russians, and he did it. I think it must have. I don't know the exact time frame, but it was pretty quick that he got a tweet from I forget who it was. Somebody. Oh, the Ukrainian prime minister, and he went ahead and he said, "Yeah, no problem. Here's Starlink." And they delivered a few terminals. I know there's still some more on the way. And now with the name Elon Musk, I wonder if he is Ukrainian. I wonder if he's from Europe. He's definitely European. It's got to be.
I can look it up right now.
I would
I'll look it
definitely
up.
say he might be Ukrainian. But
Elon Musk.
while you're looking that up, Julian, I kind of want to touch on
South African and Canadian mother.
South African.
I remember that. Yeah, I do
should
kind of remember them saying that.
I should have known
Yeah.
that. Definitely not
Yeah,
Europe.
kind of remember that.
But
No.
what I wanted to touch on is we see the current climate of the world right now. Pretty
Yeah.
scary stuff, right?
Very.
Like very just with Russia being involved in the US and the way that they're talking, and we all know their capabilities with nuclear powers and they're two of the biggest, strongest armies in the world. And more importantly, there's civilian lives that are being directly affected by this, and
For sure.
it's
It's going to be
just
4 million people, refugees, going into these different countries into the West. Now these other countries have to fulfill enough food in shopping marts.
no, that's
Because
definitely
the
it's definitely
gas
gonna
our
happen.
gas is going up. Dude, it's
I think that
insane,
it's just
bro.
crazy that
A
that
lot of inner things that it's gonna just
yeah. Well, the other thing
already
too is
started.
there's a lot going on with like what you can actually believe what's being talked about. It's just so much
Yeah.
circulating information. It's
Oh,
actually
it's so
crazy.
speculative
Our
right now,
first
yeah.
real big, in my opinion, it's our first real big war other than the war in Iraq. But now that social media, like over the last like 5 years, social media has just skyrocketed, right? With like
Right.
how much information people are actually gathering
Ugh,
from that
makes me
compared to the
sick,
news.
honestly.
And it's crazy what you
Can't
listen.
believe what you see on the internet is social media, the internet is extremely
It's a good
speculative.
and bad. It's a double-edged sword,
It's a
right?
double-edged sword.
It's
That's a
good
good
and
way to
bad.
put it,
I think it all depends on what you allow yourself to obtain and
for
what
sure.
you and then if you have enough presence of mind to go ahead and, you know, I guess search after or see what information you can sought after and see if it's true and see what's false and kind of figure out where the real information is. But I don't want to get too much off topic. What I wanted to talk about is, we started the episode asking how each other's weeks are. Long week, obviously. Um, long week of work, whatever problems that we've encountered. But I think the biggest thing for I think me and you and most people watching this, I don't know how many people are watching this from outside the US. If you are, appreciate it. Welcome in. But I think just seeing like what our rough week might look like in our heads versus
Oh,
like
yeah.
being a
Very
part of
different.
like I mean, they literally the Ukrainian president banned 18 to 60-year-old men from leaving the country
I
to
know.
bear arms.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And a lot of people have
And I think I've been watching it too much, dude. Like, I've been staying, like, really on top of it, and I'm just like
I stay on top of it because I'm worried about Russia and the US getting
right.
involved and
All
stuff.
of
But
that.
I
Same.
also I
Yeah.
also pay attention because you really hate to see it's a weird thing, right? Like this invasion is not really like where is
Another
more
country came
so.
at Russia, and then Russia's
Yeah.
retaliating. It's
Like
just like,
if you look at any other invasion, like a big invasion, right? Like on the Normandy beaches in World War II, right? Like in France. And like that was just direct military might versus military might contact. It
mhm,
really wasn't civilians involved immediately, right? Other than the occupied areas of where the Nazis had occupied. But like this is like I feel like on TV at least, and again, whatever of that is true, we will come to find out. But I feel like most of it is like there's just bombings on civilian territory and fighter jets, and cruise missiles being shot into civilian territory where the Ukrainian army is really just fighting off the ground forces, and the Russians have just been attacking from the air on innocent civilians,
it's
with the invasion.
horrible. It's literally,
You know,
like,
it's
heart-crunching.
yeah,
Just
no,
the yeah,
I feel for the
insane.
people, it's and you really come down to like what problems what problems do you really have? Right?
Yeah,
Like what problems can like that's a uncontrollable problem.
yeah,
It's out of
out of
their
their
means
reach.
of control.
And
Right.
then it goes back to, like, this whole thing, how Putin did this, like, my first initial thought, I don't know what yours might have been, was, like, what's his mental health state at? Like, how did it escalate?
It's very true actually.
Like, how did it escalate to that? Like, like,
Well,
that was my first initial thought, man.
the
And I
fact that you bring that up, the crazier thing is when you look at other reports too, Russian soldiers have been interviewed
I saw
saying
that.
that they thought that this was a military exercise. They were instructed that it was a military exercise,
Yeah.
and then now they are finding out that it's an invasion, and there's an actual war being waged in Ukraine. And I think when you speak about, you know, Putin's mental health, it's like, I mean, how bad do you have it right now where you have to lie to your military personnel and, send down communications from your generals to your people where you're just putting not all you're putting Russian lives in danger, right? Your military lives in danger because, I've never been to war. I won't act like I know what it feels like, but
No.
I think
No.
that it's definitely two different mindsets whether you think you're going on a drill weekend compared to going into a combat theater. And, I think it's amazing to me that as the leader of a country and a military might that you can just tell these young
Yeah.
Russian soldiers that this is a military exercise. What kind of, and I mean,
And
go
then also try and justify it, saying that Ukraine was the enforcer originally,
correct.
and then trying to have that justify for their people to say like, "Hey, yeah, this is what we're supposed to be doing." Like,
Yeah. I think it's good though, like with not the invasion. What I think is good is like you're starting to see Russian people protesting the war. Like people don't want to go to war anymore. Like
dude, we're living in a
people
pandemic, like, that
people
just
don't
happened.
want to go to
The
war
Olympics
anymore.
just happened.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, it's just this is the stuff that like when you talk about people and understanding and like our whole entire vision and mission statement of like understanding the cultural aspects of people and their experiences, like
And learning through them, yeah.
there's I mean, at what point in Vladimir Putin's life did he deal with some type of trauma? He
Exactly.
was in the KGB, which was, pretty much the,
Is that
CIA or the
quoted?
spy. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
in the KGB.
I honestly didn't know that.
Yeah. He was a former KGB, agent, spy, whatever you wanna call it. Um, and, I mean, what does that do to you being, as a Russian spy in the Cold War,
Yeah.
being put into different, spy operations, and being plugged in places, and I can imagine. Well, I can't imagine, but it just you have to wonder what it does to the mind and what are his. I guess what you could say. What are his intentions, or where his intentions stem from?
Right.
Right. And it's like, again, we can draw this back to a conclusion where it's like when we look at people that we see going through trauma, or we know, um, we knew this person before and they've gone through some things. And then all of a sudden you see this new person evolve. And it's like, okay, what did that trauma do to create these new intentions, right?
Yeah.
Form these new connections in the brain that they seem to now internalize and feel that, and lash out on. I think that's kind of, Julian, what we wanted to talk about
I
with.
was just about to say that too, is the tough
Yeah,
conversations, bro. Yeah,
no, is the
you tied
tough
that in really
conversations
nicely.
that we want to have, and really be able to convey to people and understand at a deeper level of what trauma really does, to some of the smartest people in the world, right? Like, listen, I mean, I'm not going to say Vladimir Putin's a stupid guy. He's the leader of the second, third largest country in the world, right? And he's not a stupid guy. Is he a violent guy? Is he all these other things that you want to call him, a dictator? Yes, definitely. However, where did this start? And it's just like when you look at the book Mein Kampf, the biography about Adolf Hitler. You see a lot of the traumas that he went through kind of start building this rebel, rebellious type of, you know, person, identity, right?
Mhm.
And I think when do why don't we start out by talking about where we think trauma begins to change someone's identity, or create an
Yeah.
identity for them at a young age or wherever.
Yeah, not,
Yeah.
if you're young age, I feel like you're just not able to understand really what's happening until a later age. You kinda look back and you're like, "Whoa, that was really, really messed up what I was going through." But that also plays into a part of, like, not being able to communicate it to people,
Yeah. No,
right? So
100%.
so I think that's where you tried to wanna get it into is, just being able to bring up the trauma, and it's not easy. That's tough, you know? It's really tough.
I think it I think the conversations,
But you gotta swallow a
whatever
few
you
pills,
have.
like, yeah, you have to swallow a few pills to do it, like, not literally, but
Yeah, well,
you have
figuratively,
but
but,
figuratively, it sucks, but, um,
you know,
you know,
no,
I've had to
no,
do it with
I
family.
get where you're coming from, and I've
But how
definitely
else do we
ex
grow? How else do we grow from it? You know what I mean?
well,
Like, without the tough conversations, like,
no,
how else is
100%.
anyone gonna understand, almost I wouldn't wanna say the truth because but, the truth.
Well, Jordan Peterson had a really good way to put it. Um, he was having a conversation with a woman, about they were talking about males in society, and stuff like that, like why they were actually talking about trans rights too, and the lady asked him, what gives you the right to not want to respect trans rights, and what she was not doing. But his rebuttal was, well, I think what it is, it's not that I'm not understanding, um, trans rights. He said, what it is that at what point do we sacrifice the risk of offending people to disallow thought? And he said it in a different way, but what he was saying was, you have to risk being offensive in order to create the tough conversations to have both sides of the opinion, and then that'll lead you to the truth. So he's like,
Say that one more time. Say that one more time.
what he said was that at what point do you risk or alleviate or do away with being offensive, right? To give
Right,
up the fact that you have free thought or opinion on a
right.
topic.
Gotcha now,
So
yeah.
he was like, and then his rebuttal to the lady was, well, you're seemingly, you don't have a problem, asking me all these questions about me saying this about trans rights and potentially offending me. because you're trying to create that thought for the people listening and for myself and for you, and to
Yeah,
grow the conversation organically, and to then generate a two-sided conversation where people can then
for
go from
sure.
point to point and figure out the truth. And it's like
I
it
think you and I do that really well. I
no,
think you and I
100%.
just listening to people and, having those direct conversations
Yeah.
and getting to the point.
But I think that's where we're at with,
O
like,
off the podcast. This is just what we built
yeah.
to, put
No,
it on the
exactly,
ground.
but what I'm saying is, like, I think that's where we're at with society today is, like, people we're not risking the thought driving potentially offensive questions, and it's not because we wanna be offensive, it's because that if you're telling me that I can't think that way, then you're removing thought, you're just telling me that this is the way it is. I don't have any way around it,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Yeah,
just
if someone gets
I don't
offended
know.
by things that you're trying to ask them and get to know them, man, it's you gotta put down that defensive. It goes back to conversating and having those hard conversations because people are so quick to put their defense up. And, like,
Well,
you ask those questions and people are, they'll try and manipulate the question into it performing out for them,
yeah. No,
right?
I 100%, and I think actually kinda makes me think of, like, if you really think about it, right, like, most people who go through trauma, right, and go through whatever experience it is, they don't really talk about it, one, and I don't think they even, like, realize it themselves, right? Like, they don't ever really, like, internalize what's going on. They kinda are just, like, living through it, and then
Exactly
when
it.
you get older to, like, our age,
Mhm.
you're like, "Wait a minute.
That
This
was fucked
all"
up.
no, not that,
Like
but like
like, my that shit was
it's
not
like now I kinda
good.
I'm like, I know maybe where these things are, and that's important too because I think if you don't start to ask where these things began, I
Right.
think, like, therapy for people, that's where a lot of it be those are a lot of the
Yeah,
conversations start,
it
right, with
does.
trauma, where it's like you go back to the root cause, right?
Right.
So, like, for
Oh, you're
instance,
getting into my yeah, dude. Yeah.
so for instance, right, like,
Mhm.
my parents kinda argued a lot when I was a kid, and, like, for me and I had, like, all different types but the way that I and it's weird, it's very weird because I heard a gentleman say this the other day on TikTok,
No, talk about it, dude.
and he said he's like, "The reason why you self-isolate now" it's not even really self-isolating, though, it's more so like you deal with problems by yourself now, and you like your alone time now to think and sort out the emotions that you're currently going through.
Yeah.
And what he was saying is the reason why you do that now is because you had to deal with your problems alone as a child.
Mhm.
So, like, for
100%.
instance, I was the oldest, right? And then I have my younger sister, but, like, I didn't have an older brother. And honestly, I had this conversation with my mom a few times, about it, honestly. And I think it's important to talk about those things in your past too, like, on a very calm and, like,
That's
understanding level without any judgment. And, I had the conversation with her too, and, she got, like, kinda upset because she's like, "I never knew you felt that way." And I'm like, "You know what though, mom? Like, I don't want you to feel upset because I would've been built in a totally different personality trait and a totally different,
if
character
you didn't
trait,
have to deal with it on your own.
totally different identity in
Yeah.
who I am. If I went a different way or I sought out
I
different, I'd
gotcha.
be different." So I was like,
Mhm.
really, because now I think I really work good by myself to figure out my own problems.
Mhm.
And that's what everything that's what in my own problems that I think I have in multiple areas of whatever they may be that I need to work on just to progress. Not that they're like
Sure.
an impeding thing, but I think things that can change. And then, just solving any type of issues. I think I just kind of like want to be closed off and alone and let me figure it out. Right.
Yeah. It's kind of sound like you were getting into it earlier. How do you manage those thoughts? Like, do you go back to the root and you say, "This is where it's starting," and
You wanna know what the root
it's
was?
and it's
Actually, the
been
fact that you
yeah,
brought that up.
yeah, talk about it.
You know what the root is?
And this is
And
guys, this is really important to find. Not many people find the root. Like, they don't
yeah,
know about the root, and what we've talked about, like, they've gotten to a point in their age where this stuff has just happened, like we've talked about. And, now it's understanding that this has happened to you and going to the root. But
yeah,
there's certain exercises that I've done personally to help me find getting to the root, and, turning that story, that old past story into something that's now going to the future, right?
yeah,
Like, I didn't have all of that knowledge for, I mean, probably the first, like, I had all these things happening. I was always gritty, always working hard, always trying to perfect my craft. I had all this personal messed up family stuff happen, right? And I didn't realize it. And then, like, I got to reading these books, Millionaire Success Habits, unreal book by Dean DeGrazio. A lot of exercises, but the 7 whys. I won't give that here because I want to hear what you're about to say, but um,
the
talk
7
about
wonders,
where
yeah.
your root was. And
Um, so the root is and I still my brain, it's very weird because my brain still reacts immediately this way
mhm,
in many situations when I'm addressed with a conflict or
for
a
sure.
situation that I have to address,
Talk about it.
right? So as a kid, I could never really fix the problem, so to speak, physically or you know, whatever I having to create a different dynamic. I couldn't do that. I was just a kid. So I was trying to figure out how I could change this, right? Because I couldn't do it physically, right?
Mhm,
I couldn't do it with money. I couldn't do it with a job, like getting my, let's say, mother out of what was going on or, you know, helping the family. I wasn't old enough to be an emotional type of like, let's get the family together to talk about, right? I was, yeah, like 8, 9, 10 years old.
mhm,
Um, but my mind, so because I couldn't fix things,
mhm.
I always like immediately, I always thought about how can I fix this? How can I fix this? How can I? So now every problem, right? So my mom will call me to this
So
day.
that right there is perfect too, is like you telling yourself, "How can I fix this? How can I fix this?" Instead of, "I can't fix this. I can't fix this." You're that limiting belief that
Yeah,
we've talked about before too.
yeah.
Just wanted
No,
to
that's an
add that
important
in.
thing because
Yeah,
I could have
those
easily
questions are
said
very important. It's
I
like, "I
could have
can't do
easily
this."
said that
Could
I
have
can't
easily
fix
done that.
this. But I
Exactly.
was so young, dude. I'm just the
Yeah,
reason why I'm saying this because I was so young, but
because that's
and it
me. I connect on that level so
yeah,
deep to, like,
and it
with the
was
questions that you're
you
asking
know,
yourself.
it's weird because my mind almost pretty much adapted that way over time, and now I'm a really good problem solver. Like, it's a good thing. However,
Yeah, dude.
sometimes
Yes, you are a good problem solver.
it gets me into, like
I would agree very much.
I think it gets me into not trouble, but, like, it makes conversation that don't need to happen because people might call me just to, like, vent. For
Mhm.
instance, my girlfriend might call me to be like, you know, just to get things off her chest, or my mom might
You
call
and I
me.
get some calls like that, and
Yeah,
but
no,
consciously
100%.
say, like, "Get it off your chest because this is
No, but
important,"
and this is the thing, right? So, like, this is where I wouldn't I guess you can call it trauma. I don't look at it that way now because it's kinda built who I am, so I don't look at it as trauma, I just look at the way I grew up. Maybe I might be the person that is doing what
It's
you're not
so
supposed to do,
what I'm
say.
reading is that there's probably trauma before it that is making you tell yourself that maybe it's trauma now.
Yeah,
The trauma
a little
before
bit. I think it's just what I went through
growing
kinda
up, yeah,
kinda just curved and eroded the things away that I wasn't supposed to be, and now it's kinda paved me a path
for that thought
on
process.
yeah, yeah, for the way that my mind works. So,
Exactly.
basically
Mhm.
when my girlfriend will call me to vent, for instance, about work, whatever, trying to do this with business and the whole 9 yards, whatever she needs to get off her chest. I'm a good listener too, but and I think that's because I try and solve problems and I like to listen to everything before I try to solve them. But sometimes
Amen,
she'll
brother.
she'll try and go ahead and say all this stuff, rambling off, this is what's going on. But in my brain, no matter how much I just want to sit there and listen, I start throwing advice and
Mhm.
solutions and this. And it's like, meanwhile, sometimes we've not got into it, but sometimes she's been like, hey, I just need you to listen. I don't want you to try and tell me how to fix it, which I understand, right? You're
Okay.
just trying to
Yeah.
get it off your chest. But
Yeah.
for me, it's just like,
Right, for
I
sure.
can't, like, my
You're
mind only
what
thinks how to fix the problem.
Yeah,
You know what
exactly.
I mean? So, like, I can listen,
Goes
but
into a
it's very
standstill.
hard for me to just listen and not give you a solution because my
Right.
mind is already thinking towards what is the possible solution. How can we fix this? How can we
Yeah.
blah, blah. You know what I mean? So that for me, I guess is a little bit of trauma that doesn't impede me, so to speak, in my
And ma
life, in the way I think, in the way I go about things, but it does, however, create a little bit of confusion or disconnection in certain styles of conversation when people are just trying to lay things out for you and just wants
Mhm.
me to listen, and I
Right.
just shove solutions down. Like, "Oh, you gotta do this. You gotta do it. You get no, you," and it's like, slowly but surely, I kinda understand where they're coming from, right? When,
Yeah.
like, people just wanna be like,
Listen to and
hear
just
you out,
support.
and it's like,
I
"Yeah,
got you.
I
Yeah.
hear you." But it's for some reason,
Let me know what I can do to help. That's, like,
my
the only
mind
thing I tell
just
people.
goes and goes with the
But
solution.
I get your perspective
Does that
too.
make sense?
It makes complete sense. It makes complete
If you
sense.
guys if you guys can visually see what I'm talking about, understand, let me know in the comments if you
Yeah,
understand what
comment
I'm talking about.
below. We wanna
You
hear.
know what I mean? Let me know what you think, 'cause that's where I think it stems from,
Mhm.
and it's a good thing in most scenarios, and it's a disconnecting type of thing in small areas of conversation. So it's definitely important though, and I've almost indirectly too and then I wanna hear from you, Julian, about, what kinda sorta things you've realized, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I've, searched, but indirectly searched on what the roots are, if that makes sense. You want me to
Search, but
elaborate on that?
indirectly I mean, no, I get what you're saying, but maybe elaborate for the people, like,
So,
from
I haven't been, out there looking at, "Oh, what happened, when I was this age? Oh, this is why I'm,"
Mhm.
but, I'll do something and then I'll be like and I'll just sit there, and because I'm like a lifetime thinker and
Mhm.
learner,
Yeah.
I'll think to myself, "Oh, why am I doing that when other people are doing this? Like, what is it about me that maybe," and that way, have learned to not only pick up some of the things that I've gotten from some of the trauma in my life, but some of the I've kinda gotten to understand and be okay with it at the end of the day. That's just who I am
Yeah.
until I find something that is, negative energy or brings negative to other people around me or is not a characteristic that I wanna employ and who Jimmy Gill is as a person going forward, as a father and a husband, then we'll go ahead and we'll
You have a kid while I was gone?
no, don't even
I'm
kid
just
about
kidding.
that. Don't even kid about a kid. Uh,
That's funny. Sorry.
one day,
No, for sure.
and he'll be taken care of. Well, hopefully he'll have well, not hopefully, I know he'll have he won't have to deal with trauma, hopefully. All of it will
Everyone's
be
got
good
their own
lessons.
trauma in their own way.
Yeah,
Everyone's got
well,
their own
speak to
trauma
that.
anyway.
If that kinda goes along with what you were saying.
Oh,
If
man.
not, you can go ahead and
The
go and
brain the brain just looks for negative energy constantly, and it's easy to feed into that. So the hard part is to get the muscles firing on pistons and, stay positive. Like, that's really
is this you speaking
that's
from
a
your
big fight
stuff?
too. Yeah, yeah, that's speaking from straight out of my shit. I mean, yeah, if I needed to quote people, I'll definitely quote them,
Yeah,
but
I'm just saying is that excuse me for yawning, but is that something that you've realized um growing up in maybe your childhood or adolescence or early adulthood that's just like you see yourself for some reason going back to like not staying there, but you'll maybe think negatively or you used to think negatively until you figured out that you slowly do that and now you'd rather
I've
catch
just
it think
changed. Yeah.
positively.
Yeah, I've just
That makes sense.
changed the entire dynamic, like, reprogrammed everything, like, going down to the core, traumas and facing them straight on, like, it's definitely not easy. It's not easy, but,
Do you feel ashamed?
I'd consider myself healed.
Do you feel ashamed from your dramas? Because I feel like most people
No,
some
like,
people
that's the thing, like,
some
I've
people look
changed
at
the
themselves
entire
like they're
dynamic. I've changed the entire
responsible for
dynamic.
it, right?
It No, for sure, and that's yeah, no, for sure, and that's it. And that's it, being able to change the story. Like, you gotta go so deep into the darkest traumas that you have and literally create it, like, no matter if you really wanna turn things around in your life, you gotta go to the deepest, darkest part and face it and
Yeah.
basically and turn that into a like, you have to turn it into a new story.
Yep.
For
It's
for
like
mine for mine personally, like, man, I had parents that were divorced. There was a lot of money situations in my family that took a lot of greed. Religion played into it. Um, didn't have a dad for like 5, 6 years after the divorce. My mom went through deep, 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 deep depression, said things that she shouldn't have said. But you got to go to that point. You got to go down to those dirty, dirty areas and, first off, have the tough conversations with yourself, change the story, and then have the tough conversations with those people so it's not
yeah,
traumatizing you.
I
And
agree.
that's the biggest thing that I did and have been able to change the entire dynamic. I'm a true believer that the only reason, my family is still sticking around and the salvage that we've been able to have it is because of my relationships and being able to stay with the family and
You're the
connecting people
peacekeeper.
together. I am the peacekeeper, and that is not an easy job. And I know you
Yeah.
have the same familiarity with, having that role as well. So, I did it like 10 years ago. Five, what is it? No, not 10 years ago. I'm 27. Yeah, 10 years ago already. Holy shit. Like 17, 10 years ago. Yeah, my parents, yeah,
Getting
no,
real,
that was
real
10
quick.
years ago. So I did that 10 years ago and and I notice, what you're going through now and I try not to talk about this stuff with you because I know you are going through it, but
No, it's not. I
and
mean,
and
listen, we can talk about
it
it.
can it can it can trigger it's a trigger conversation. And
Yeah,
as much as I hate it, but the only way you're going to get out of the position you are in right now is if you take action on going to those parts that are
yeah,
nitty-gritty and facing them you gotta swallow some pills, and it's not easy. And it's
yeah.
gonna be a continuous battle
There are
after
some
that. So
conversations that
now it's
need to
like
be had for a long time that will be happening soon. Um,
yeah, yeah,
you know,
I really encourage them, but I would do it in a strategic way. I wouldn't go on blast and, I mean, yes, put your emotions into it, but I would strategically plan it in a way that, it's you unique, and people are going to feel you when you explain it to them. And if they
yeah,
don't get it,
100%.
if they don't get it, look, the best thing you can do for anybody in any traumatizing situation, if you're trying to get better yourself, if you want someone else to get better in your family, is to be the best version of yourself. And you hear that everywhere,
Yeah,
but I'm just living that area right now,
yeah,
and seeing it by taking steps and using and utilizing everything that you're learning, and at least trying them. Like,
yeah,
that's the whole fun thing too. Like, once you get past that really dark area, and you've gotten to the point where you're having exercises, getting better, um you're gonna improve. You're gonna improve.
yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna improve.
No, and
So,
I think one of the biggest
I
things
I hate to trigger people, but this is a tough
yeah,
conversation.
no,
It's a
you
tough
have to be able
conversation,
to have I mean, you have to
and
have
that's why
be
I
able
g
to have
people
tough conversation with yourself, with your significant other, with your parents, with your kids,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like, they're needed,
Coaches,
and if you
anything,
shy away
yeah.
from them, you're
Follow what you
doing
know.
somebody a disservice, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But
You and yourself.
something that you brought up, and you didn't even really say it, like, this phrase, but what you were saying made me think of this, and basically what I got out of it is, like, be brave enough to go and find the root causes of what might be creating this person that is disliked by, others and maybe even yourself, then settling for the victim mentality and
Right.
being able to just to say, "Listen, I'm an asshole and I'm miserable and I
Look,
treat people
you
like
want me to put it
shit
out there?
because I went through shit." Like, that's just not, and that's a bullshit cop out. Right, like,
Yeah,
it's a bullshit cop out. Like, if
it is.
it for
You're making
you,
an
you're
excuse.
doing just, and I'll put it to people like this. You are doing the exact same thing of the person that had created the trauma for you that makes you now angry at that person. You're becoming that person, and you're
Mhm,
doing the same damage that person did to you.
mhm.
So,
Yep.
rather than become a victim and just internalize that and not really get your head around why and what, and really understand that maybe it wasn't your fault. You were just, a young kid or this and that, right? Just trying to understand the full complexity of the situation than trying to just saying, "Ah, you know what? My dad was, used to beat on my mom." Like, I'm just, I'm a miserable person. I don't like people.
And that's the
Or
part
that
where you change. That's that story that you go so far back and change. Like, a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't." You'll see it on social media too. Like, I mean, it's weird. I always had this drilled into my head unconsciously, is like people saying, "I can't afford it." So there's a difference between people saying, "I can't afford it," and how the brain works when you say, "How can I afford it?"
that might
Because
be
every time you're
rich dad,
asking,
poor dad thing.
yeah, I can't. It could be Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I also see it on. I've seen it on social media, but I unconsciously, like, you did it too. You asked yourselves the right questions somehow, in some way. I feel so blessed for that opportunity. I don't
Yeah,
know what God was given to us for us to
I know.
the victim mentality, at least, like, because we unconsciously have done that our entire lives, which is what's led us here. But
Very
then,
unconsciously.
right, and then what I was like, what I'm kind of just saying is, like, now taking my values that I grew up with unconsciously and putting them to the concepts that I'm learning now, it's like, "Oh my god, like, I've been doing this
Superpower.
shit, my whole life, and I didn't
Yep,
even know." And now, like, actually consciously understanding now that this is what it is, and this, and this, and this in each section of your life, and you wanna
yep.
keep getting better, like, you wanna keep getting better in those sections of your life,
No,
but yeah, dude.
I mean, you couldn't. I mean, there's really not much other to say about what you just said. With just trying to understand. I always,
Ask
my
yourself
mom
the right
always,
questions, and don't put a limiting. If you find your, like, write down every negative thought. I did these exercises, the 7 whys. I did 24 hours without saying a negative or thinking a negative thought. Every time people can't get past 5 minutes. People will fail. Go to Try and go 24 hours. Read this in a book in Millionaire Success Habits. There's a lot in that book. That's why I keep
there's a
saying,
number. I think your
go
mind.
24 hours without having a negative thought.
I think your brain says 7,000 or 700. I don't know,
Different thoughts.
negative thoughts a
Oh,
day.
your brain looks for it. It's
Negative thoughts a day.
proven, and
Your brain's
and
also a
it's
survival thing. So
that's what it is, right?
that's where the trauma root, like what you're saying,
Because 'Cause you're just trying to get through the day.
yeah, but when you go through trauma and then your brain is looking for negative energy, you just
Right.
got, it's superseded into you already being set off on, okay, I went through this, it's my fault, and now my brain is gonna continuously remind me that it's my fault, even though it may not
Mhm.
be, just because it's looking for that. It's feeding off of that. And it's comfortable, right? To like you said, these are tough questions to be
Yeah.
asking yourselves, your family members, and you might listen, you go and ask these people, whoever it may be, that created some type of trauma for you, either now or when you're
Mhm.
growing up, like, those you might lose those people communication, like, for a long time because they're not ready. They might not ever be ready to admit what they might have caused.
Yeah.
And I see that, you know, I
Yeah,
see
it's
that,
crazy.
and I see that a lot in my own family. There's some people
But you can.
that are not
I'm living proof
ready
that you
to
can get
admit.
there. They won't
They're
be ready
not
for a
ready
while. They're
they're
not gonna
not
be.
ready to admit that they've done wrong.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, and they can say it and say it's it, but again, when, like you said, when they're ready, they will listen, but there's also potential where the person is so stubborn, they might not ever be ready until maybe they're on their deathbed and they finally come to terms and say, because
There are
some
tricks.
people are
There's ways to get
so
around that.
there's some people out there, I
There are.
believe.
'Cause my mom. I love you, mom,
But there, yeah,
but
but there
you are
is some
stubborn as shit.
there, yeah, mine too. But there are some people out there, man, that are just
Oh,
they are
God.
so hard sought at believing that they didn't contribute to this trauma or
Mhm.
this disarray or dismantling of family and relationships. They just they totally
Neglect.
they're neglectful of their
Neglectful of it, I should
responsibility,
say. No, they are,
and
yeah.
it's crazy to
But
me.
you have to understand those people know exactly what they did.
But they're master manipulators. They're
Right.
narcissists.
Yeah.
They're they're cowards in my book because they don't
I
admit.
wouldn't say you wanna who you spend your energy with, and this is why you get traumatized too, because when you're locked up around that stuff, obviously you're perceiving that in, and that's what you think your ceiling is. That's what most people think their ceiling is what they've learned from their parents, and obviously the way that they are treated, or because their past experiences, the way they react to things.
Mhm.
And you know, oh, what was the topic? Help me out.
I lost my train of thought because
Yeah,
I
we.
was gonna add to.
Yeah, I know.
You're talking about I was talking about narcissists
The narcissist. Yep.
and people that are just so stubborn and they don't wanna be able to admit it.
Master manipulators and they.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's different. Yeah. Just to get off of it, honestly, there's different things. It's not out of the question that those people. Oh, don't be around. You don't want to be around those people. You
Yeah.
don't want to be around those people. But if you consciously see with family, I never give up. I'm never going to give up on family, ever. And when you're around that environment, you have to consciously understand that you have to focus on yourself. Like, you cannot get involved and wrapped up in their problems. And the best way that you can help them is to be the best version of yourself, so they can see that you own up to your mistakes, that
Yeah.
you live a life that is respectable. And once they see that, they're like, okay. But you have to consciously understand you need to be working on yourself. It's very difficult. And this is something that I've done, and I'd do it 100 times again, consciously understanding it
I think
to
that's the hardest
see.
part for most people.
And dude, it's very, very difficult, and I think it's worth it. I would not. because I feel like even if I were to never make the big bucks and live a lavish lifestyle, like I just respect myself. Like at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like what I've been able to accomplish at the end of the day, like I just respect myself and
Yeah.
enough respect for myself. Like I don't really give a shit who you are.
Yeah.
You don't have any right to treat anybody differently just because you have a higher job title, because you have more money, because you've been put into a better scenario than others. Like
Yeah.
you gotta look at other, like everyone has their traumas. And the more you do that, you're biting into other people's traumas and it's not spreading love. It's more of just ego cocky
Yeah.
talk, you know?
That's funny you say that because Jordan Peterson, again, we'll bring him up, was at a
Yeah,
conference one time, and I don't know if it was a conference or just somewhere he was speaking, but what he was saying is he was explaining how everyone has their traumas, and he was explaining that, people might see the guy in the cherry red Porsche and say, "Wow, wish I could have that guy must be lucky, wish I have his life." Meanwhile, in that
sure.
same instance, the guy driving that cherry red Porsche is looking for the next opportunity to wrap that car around the next tree or
Right.
telephone pole,
So yeah,
right? Because just to get away from his traumas,
right.
right? And a lot of I don't wanna say this because it's not concrete evidence, but I know
Formulate it in a
there.
question and how we can talk about it.
No,
Can
I
you?
mean, it's not. Yeah, well, it's more of a statement, and maybe we can bring something off of it, but
Okay.
what I was gonna get at is that a lotta successful, high achieving people have come from trauma and struggles and,
For
like,
sure.
Dana White, Joe Rogan,
But think about how invested those guys are all into mental health.
yeah, yeah, but you know what, dude? I think a lot of it, like, a lot of them grew up poor, a
Mhm.
lot of them grew up with parents that were not so great, and I think that trauma sometimes is a master motivator and being an inspirational fuel to people because they don't wanna go back there. They don't ever wanna go back there, they don't wanna have family life like that. They
Yeah.
want to be financially stable, they wanna be around their family, they wanna be healthy with their body, they want because 'cause they've seen, whether they have, parents that suffer from addiction or they're poor and they can't feed themselves, or they've went through the struggle, and they've seen so much of what could be and is when you're in poverty and poor, and they don't ever wanna get back because they get literally,
Yeah.
subconsciously
They remember
scared.
what it was like. Yeah,
They're
you hear
scared
stuff.
to ever go back there, so once they get
Right.
the opportunity, they take it and they go,
For
you
sure.
know, and
But
and
yeah, and you're gonna fail a shit ton before that opportunity comes and you're actually able to consciously
100%.
understand this is my opportunity. Like you gotta put yourself in a scenario where those opportunities come, and that's huge too.
Yeah.
But the other thing, what to say when you talk to yourself. Great book. I kind of want to get the author after I'll explain this, but talks
Yeah.
about your two frontal lobes. Your brain has been trained on the left and right frontal lobe. And basically, the left side or the right side, I might get them mixed up, intakes all the negative. And just like your brain, it works like a muscle. So the more you tell your negative frontal lobe all this negative shit, you're growing that muscle.
I think the
You are,
frontal lobe is where learning takes place too.
yeah, yeah. It's all right here. You got two of them, your left and right side.
Your right hemisphere and the left hemisphere, right?
Yep.
The right.
And on the other side, which might not be the strongest brain like part of your brain for a lot of people, is the positive intake, the happy feelings, the euphoria, um, um, the mental good thoughts. Really, at the end of the day.
Correct.
And if you're not, you can out train. You can work. This is the thing where you can scale it the other way, in which I'm in the process of really getting a hold of. Is you can manage your brain if you rewire it the right way to intake more on the positive side and grow that muscle stronger and have the other negative lobe weaken And that is a true fact. I read that. I'm gonna
I
get the
believe it.
author so you can find it.
Here we go. He's actually using the bathroom. He's actually taking a deuce.
No, I'm not pooping. Shad Helmster. This is a great book, by the way. Can you see that?
Yeah, because you have your thing blurred. That's why. What to say? Move it. If you move it in the
I
middle
don't
where your
know if it's
mic
gonna
is,
work.
where your mic
Maybe
is.
like put it in front of me.
Yeah. What to say when you talk to you? There you go. Boom.
Yeah. But no, seriously, what I just said is unreal. He's got his PhD. Shad Helmstetter, and he really he dives
Self-taught.
he dives in deeper about it. But those are other little things that I'm totally invested in and working on daily.
I think the biggest thing is such small incremental change.
It is. It's your little habits, man. I
Is the
keep saying
biggest.
it.
It's a book that I read too. What the heck is it? Oh, Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
James Clear.
There's a ton of
Small incremental changes.
yeah.
Small incremental changes are so impactful. So impactful. But I think the conversation that we've had about trauma is like, I don't know, not a lot of people are willing to talk about it.
No. And they might not even get this far on the podcast. And for the people that have gotten
Yeah,
this far,
exactly.
we
For
know
you
you
11-minute watchers, watch the
yeah.
whole thing, please. Got some. It's got some. If you get past the 11-minute mark, you'll watch the whole thing, guaranteed.
Yeah. I think the topic that we started with in Ukraine is, um just it's a top trend. It's just messed
Imagine
up.
that. Imagine those
Yeah,
young
imagine
people
the
with the
young
trauma
people
that they're gonna
in,
endure for
in
the rest
counts,
of their
yeah, for the rest
lives.
of their life. Like that's right there, man. I mean,
That's that.
I think we talked a little bit about that, but that
No,
would
we did.
sum up. I couldn't even imagine. Oh man, that is just
But again,
that is
Julian,
so
I think
sad,
the
man.
biggest part of like the overall view of what we just talked about is like understanding it all goes back to the vision and the mission statement that we have, which is learning through others' experience. And if you begin, I mean, a big part of this is relationships too. Like some people, especially in this day and age, when cheating and infidelity and just being loyal to one person is so like looked at as like a rarity, and it's just you see people all over, like whether it's social media, it's glorified, right, to be a guy that's got a lot of women at once, or it's you never see the
Yeah.
songs where to be a real man and
Hmm.
be true to one woman. Those aren't the popular song. It's the one where you're going out to the club, you have, three chick. It's
Unfortunately, man.
unfortunately that's the way that
Unfortunately.
it's those are the things that are looked at as
But
valuable.
yet again, it's going to be tough for those people because they will hit a point. Well, they'll unconsciously just further along understand the stuff that we're talking about, and then maybe listen to this 10 years later and be like, shit, man, like
Yeah, but what I'm saying is and I agree with you. What I meant by that is like it all starts with how the guys say, these girls are crazy, they have all these trust issues. It's like, well, bro, I'm not saying all of them.
mhm,
Sometimes there are people that are a little over the top, but again, that's from past trauma that you're
mhm,
not letting yourself understand, and you're cutting something that could be a good thing short if you're just willing to understand and listen to that person, and
yeah,
really understand that, you know, the 3 boyfriends she had before, where one cheated on her, one was just totally not loyal from the start, all these things.
yeah,
You, unfortunately,
mhm,
might be the good guy, and you might be the guy that's, very loving and caring and
mhm.
there, and is
But just
not
because of her
going
past
behind backs,
experience,
and
yeah,
just because of you're gonna be questioned, and it might drive you crazy because you're like, "I'm not giving you any reason to think that way."
yeah,
But but you have to understand where that person's coming from because it can be easily I've seen it be the other way around too. I've seen friends of mine that have, been they're just nice guys and they always get run over, right? And chicks are just
Mhm.
whatever chick they go out with, they'll date for a little bit and then they're gone to another guy. And it's like, for him, finally
Yeah.
finds a girl and it's like, oh, who you texting? Oh, this. Oh, that. And it's like a jealousy thing. Like
Mm.
but this is all metastasized, right?
Yeah.
From
Insecurities.
from past trauma.
Mhm.
And I think it's important for people that are in relationships to really maybe sit down and have these conversations with your significant other. Say, hey, is there anything that you'd like to talk to me about that, or just I think that should be a conversation you should have when you first start dating in order to get
Yeah,
to
for
know that
sure.
person,
Yeah.
and their
Yeah.
family and what they're about and maybe why, how they tick, right? I think those problems can all solve themselves out if you're willing to really get to know people. Again, comes down to wanting to know what people experienced and why it makes them who they are.
Mhm.
And we don't have enough of that. So a very judgmental society we live in, and that's why I think people don't come out about their traumas either. No one wants to
Right.
because people I
I
don't
know,
wanna say
Scott,
no
your
one.
judgment let me tell you, people's judgment of other people, you thinking that you can, put your past experiences on someone else's because they're trying to do what's best for them.
Yeah.
Oh, man, your
Or the
judgment
fact that you
sucks.
haven't dealt with trauma yet and you don't understand where that person and you wanna judge, and then you just totally get blindsided by it
Not knowing
down
the
the
full
road.
scope of the story. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like, you don't
It's
even know the
like
story.
Yeah, it's like I agree. Like, who who the fuck are you to come out here and just go ahead and rifle off a bunch of bullshit, non-fact backed fucking
Yeah,
opinions
seriously.
about somebody
No,
to ma
actually,
to make
actually.
yourself feel better. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous, and
But on the other hand, you gotta put out all the noise, like the good
blinders.
and the bad, like
Like a
that like,
good
just
like a
focus
good
on you.
Kentucky Derby horse. They got the
Yeah.
blinders on. They
In your
only see what they're
relationship too,
showing.
like, I know you are, and I hope that, like, I'm sure Lexi's getting influenced by it too. But just to be working on yourself and, like you said, she's had those, or just anyone who's had those past traumas in relationships is just like, just to
Yeah,
be working on yourself and just make sure the right you're in the right mindset with the right person. Like that's really the big thing.
I mean yeah, mindset is but again, that comes down to what I said, right? Like if your mindset is, "Hey, I really wanna get to know who this person is because I think that
And that's the other
I
thing too. Yeah.
really could potentially fall in love with this person, or
Mhm.
I just genuinely wanna know who you are because you're such an amazing person. I wanna know what exactly it is that"
Yeah.
then
Makes you
you can
tick.
get to the deeper meanings of things.
Right.
But a lot of people just go for the surface level bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, what's on my
100%.
LinkedIn? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's in my
Right.
personal
Right. Right.
LinkedIn. Like,
Right.
what the
Right.
things I want you to
That's
see
what I
and
mean.
hear.
It's so speculative.
No, but you know
So
what I mean? You know
speculative.
what I
Oh,
mean by
dude.
that? Like,
Mhm.
I'm just giving you the things I want you
100%.
to see and hear, not the
For
things that I
sure.
don't want you to see and hear, which I think are way more important to understand who I am.
Yeah.
I can feed you any type of bullshit I want.
Yeah. Most of
You
the
know what I
people.
mean?
Oh god, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying,
For sure.
people in general, you can feed anyone bullshit. You can,
You
if
can.
you want
You
to,
can.
but
Right. For sure.
it's up to you to really give them a chance to and
But
again,
like, how do you sleep? How well do you sleep at night? Like, I not that you like if you're consciously feeding people like, and people do like, like, people are getting idolized when those people they're not even sleeping right at night because they are bullshitting their lifestyle for other people. You know what I mean?
I mean,
So you can't put all these people on a pedestal. You can't like you putting people on this pedestal is
no.
blocking. You're putting
You
a
have no
limitation,
idea what they're
putting a
going through.
limitation in.
You have
Yeah, you
no
don't know
idea
what
what they're
life
going
they're
through.
going
They
through.
could have $1 billion in the bank. I know
Yeah,
my buddy Vinny right now would
yeah,
tell
for
me,
sure.
"Listen, bro,
You don't
got
know.
$1 billion in the bank.
Yeah, you
I ain't
don't
got
fucking
nothing
know.
wrong." He would be telling me that right now. But what I mean is like you don't there's no dollar amount that can erase or evaporate your past experiences.
No.
Maybe your families and your current family, but for you personally, things
Mhm.
that you've dealt with and experienced. Money won't evaporate those memories. They'll be with you for the rest of your life, whether you're willing to deal with them or not.
For sure.
And I think that
Mental health, just awareness.
mental
I just
health,
wanna bring this shit because, man, I care about this so much. I care about this stuff so much, and, maybe not right now being the best to explain it, but us getting this practice in, like, eventually, we're gonna get very fluent in it. We're gonna get a lot
yeah,
better, but, I do really understand this stuff, and sometimes I do understand that I'm not putting off maybe the way people might recognize it. But, it's so important. It's so important. Like, that's on the top of every one of my lists is, like, just
people are important,
me
bro.
people are important. People are important.
People are important.
Oh, man.
People are important. It's just
People are
simple as that.
important, dude.
People are
Yeah, people
important.
are important.
And that's and I'll say one more thing,
Yeah,
about trauma because I don't wanna beat a dead horse, but I think a lot of like I said, with the high achieving people and people that have just been through trauma and they wanna run from that trauma and never have to go back potentially to that. I think that's why I care so much about, like, strangers, and I care so much about just wanting to do one thing that might brighten that person's day because of the stuff that I've been through with, just in a childhood where you're not
yeah.
really knowing what's going on, and it's most days are well, I wouldn't say most days, but some days are, you
That's a
know
big part of why I do the things I do too, for sure,
you know,
yeah.
I
Because you
think
don't want people to feel those things. Eh
for me is to see someone you literally physically change that person's entire mood, entire mindset. Even if it's a 5-second change, if that person's got, they probably have a judgment looking at you walking down the road, like, "Look at this fucking guy, he wants to open the door for me," and all of a sudden or they might have some type of judgment toward you. Then you get to the store, you open the door for the guy, you have a conversation with him, and 10, 15 seconds later, the guy's day is completely changed.
Changed, yeah, for
Completely
sure.
changed because you were just willing to go ahead and be a better person
Mhm.
and want to show people that people are good. And there's
Right.
good people out there that don't want anything in return. They just wanna go ahead and see you say, "Alright, let me pay it forward," is the greatest thing that if everyone can pay it forward, I think the world would be a very, very good place, but the
Yeah.
unfortunately, it stops at some point with some people. We hope you get there.
Yep.
We hope you get to the point where you wanna make people happy too. We're sorry what you're dealing with, and
Yeah,
if you have the courage of what Julian said to go ahead and get the search bar out for your memories and your experiences and
I would do
start
it 10 times over, guys. I'll do it 10 times
going
over.
down one memory at a time and figuring out what you can do to bring a positive to those memories. What you can do now, because that time is gone. What you experience is now no longer, and now what you do with your time after those experiences will determine whether they were detrimental to you or not, and the people around you. Because there are some people like me and you that you would never really I'm not this is not from an arrogancy or brag, but you would never really know, that
The background
we went
that we've
through
had.
some
I
shit
know.
because
No, and it's crazy, yeah.
we're
And
just
and
not really
and I
ever in
don't
a bad
expect
mood.
anybody in a conversation ever to understand it. So, like, when I approach conversations, it's kinda funny because I have been through all and everyone's like, "Oh, here's this kid.
Yeah,
Here's this kid. Who is this kid?"
yeah, exactly.
Like, dude, I mean, I'm not gonna put it out there. I'm not gonna waste my time on it, and if you're not listening, then, I'll just stay quiet because you're watering down my value and what I'm trying to bring to you,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's really my last thought, brother. I don't know,
No,
do you wanna add
listen
anything else?
nah, listen, I mean, I think what we talked about, what we wanted to talk about tonight, I think we slowly pieced together a really good episode on something that's
Yeah.
really, really valuable. And we tied it into a lot of things. And we had a little bit of courage to kind of talk about some stuff that we went
Mhm.
through. And I think it's good, and I hope people get inspired on maybe go ahead and letting their guard down on letting people know what they went through, because people might not know why you are the way you are, man. So, or woman, gal, like, let people understand why and let them help you. Let them help you. You never know who you're not letting in, who can potentially turn your whole world around, because they are the one that's willing to listen and understand. They are the
No,
one
for
that's not
sure.
gonna judge you, because they might have went through their own shit too. They most likely did. Everyone has. It's
Yep.
just a different scenario. And I think, again, it all comes down to wanting to be able to connect to other human beings and the things that they've experienced in order to gain a more general and honest understanding
Knowledge. Just
of
knowledge. Just
just
getting to
knowledge
know.
of what we all know everyone's going through, and that
Mhm.
we hide and we sugarcoat and we push off. Have the tough conversations. Get to the bottom of shit. Critique it, move on, and then grab the next person in line that looks like they don't have a fucking clue what's going on and help them.
Yeah, real shit, dude. I
And
love that.
that's it. And
Yeah,
that's it. Pull your weight, pull someone else's weight until they can pull their own.
that's it.
And that's it. That's life.
So just yeah, fucking right.
And that's
I love
life.
it.
I
On
mean,
that
boy,
note,
on that note, my friend,
let's
for
let's dance pop
Julian
it.
Lever,
Get some daydreaming.
for
Send it
Julian
out.
Lever,
Gilly used to
and
spit a little bit. Can you rap? Get some mental health rap.
the
Oh,
little mental health bars.
I don't know. Should we even start that? I know you're
Mental health
good.
bars. We need to definitely next time you'll probably hear our intro. Maybe not
Thank
next
you
time, maybe
guys.
2 episodes. You'll
We
hear our
appreciate you
intro.
sticking around for another episode.
As
Hit that
Julian
like
said,
button, hit that subscribe button.
yep,
Come follow us.
comment
Stay
down below.
inspired.
Stay inspired. Take it easy. Good night, y'all.